Hi everyone, welcome back to my YouTube channel. If you're new here, my name is Rosie, this is my husband Jeremy.
Hello.
We are currently doing embryo freezing and it has been a whirlwind. Like I last spoke to you, my last video about all this was I think last week. And I was like, I'm not going to talk to you now until we start treatment in November. Thinking it was just going to be plain sailing. I'm ill, so like I'm a bit bunged up. But a lot has happened and today's been a bloody emotional day. I've basically cried all day. We're going to get into it, but first of all, I've talked to you about last week. So I said to you, we're not going to talk to you again, everything's organised, we'll see you in November. But then we had a quick meeting with Bella from Apricity, and she was just going to give us a quick update, wasn't she, in terms of like what's next. So she was saying like, okay, so next we're going, I don't remember what she said now. Was it just like, we'll send you the, It was like getting we need to talk to a nurse about our medication and learn how to do that. Payment, obviously we needed to pay, because we paid for the King's fertility section, but we hadn't paid for the apricity section yet, so we did that this week. What else was it? Just like a quick rundown, right? Yeah. Just a quick rundown of things that were going to be happening over the next sort of couple of weeks. Obviously nothing too important, I can't even remember honestly the phone call. And then was the payment, so it was, what was it, 5,000?
5,900 plus 1,000, so
yeah.
£6,900 total.
So 1 minute, so it's 5,900 for the embryo freezing, and then 1,000 for ICSI, which is the fertilization process we're doing, where they're going to take a sperm and insert it into the egg, basically.
I'll do it this way because it's a bit less.
Yeah, like that basically. So we're going to be doing ICSI. We've talked about all this, by the way, in the previous videos. I think this is like episode 10 now or something. There's a lot of videos talking about embryo freezing, so you can go ahead and watch any of that if you're interested. So the payment was 5,900 for the embryo freezing, 1,000 for the ICSI, and we can't pay 6,900 in one go with our bank. So we said, okay, we're paying two, and that's fine. So we paid the first half like on Thursday last week. Yeah. And then the next half we'll pay next month, basically. So they do monthly instalments if that's something you're interested in. That was brilliant. And then on Friday, so they received the payment on Thursday. On Friday, they got an email saying, hi guys, we're going to send you a document. Just have a read through it over the weekend. And I've got an appointment with you on Monday to talk about everything in the documents. We were like, okay, fine. My friend was here, so you read through it, but I didn't really have a chance. And then this morning, I was like, oh shit, we've got that appointment in an hour and I haven't read through it yet.
This morning you were sleeping.
I was asleep and Joe was like, you haven't signed the paperwork. And I was like, oh shit, yeah. Jumped out of bed. And I was trying to get it done before the phone call. Luckily I didn't, because I'd signed up for things that I didn't know I was signing up for. Luckily I didn't get it done in time, because then she was talking to us about the whole process, and she was kind of saying, as if like a 30-page document. It was huge. It was really, really long.
It was plenty of documents.
Loads of information, loads of forms, some of them for me, some of them for Jeremy, and it was talking about really like nitty-gritty stuff and like actually what's going to happen with a lot of things. And the main one that just completely caught me off guard, I know I was going to have to think about it at some point, but it was like, what happens if I die? Does Jeremy get access to the embryos? Or if I become mentally incapacitated, and then vice versa? And this one, like when we spoke about it before, I'm like, no, you're not having him, and just like very just brazenly saying no. But then actually when I had to think about it today, when I was actually signing the paperwork and actually pressing yes or no, like I got so emotional. And we had to talk about it, and Jeremy was like, we shouldn't talk about it, it's a decision for you, it's not about me. And I was like, yeah, but I need help with this. Like, I just had no idea, and I just cried and cried and cried. And I'm going to talk to you about it because I've never heard anyone talk about this when they're doing IVF treatment or embryo freezing, and it's something that, like, it was a really, really difficult decision. And I know that sounds probably bad. It should be like, well, of course your husband should have it, or of course not, either way, whichever way you think. But it's interesting when you think about it in terms of, it's different for both of us. So if I die next year, Jeremy can go ahead and find another woman and get married and have kids again. Or if I die in 10 years, he can do that, because men can have kids until they're like 90. But for me, if I'm freezing my embryos now, and then if, say, in 10 years time, I'm like 44 and want to have kids and Jeremy dies, and I'm like, actually I want to use those embryos, or I want to have kids in general, like it'd be better to use my embryos from now rather than ones when I'm 44.
which is why you wanted to freeze your eggs.
Which is why I wanted to freeze my embryos in the first place, because I was like,
Eggs.
oh my god, freeze eggs, yeah, because I'm getting old, and what if I want to have kids in the future? So that was like a whole thing. So like for Jeremy, it was like a clear decision, like, of course I will give you access to that, because otherwise I'm basically taking away your right to have babies, because I might be old in the future, and it's just different, right? It's different because women's eggs decrease with age, men can have kids until they're 90, like it's just different.
I mean, it's also personal, like, I feel like it's two things. I feel that's the right thing to do in a way that, I mean, you're the one who also is treatment more than I do, and you're doing it because of the time pressure.
Yeah.
Like, you were considering doing egg freezing, but it's better medically to do embryo freezing because of changes, so we are doing that. But like me saying no, it's like doing that, but then it'll be a waste.
Taking the decision away from me.
So I don't think that's right. So that's why I'm going to say yes. And also, like, bluntly, I'll be dead. Honestly, I don't know, it's me, but like, it's something that I don't care. Like, it's like, it doesn't bother me. It's not about like, I want you to have my child. Yeah. Kind of thing. It's like, I don't think it's right to prevent you to do that. And I mean, I wouldn't be there anyway, so if that's what you want, that's what you want, like, you'll be able to do it,
Whereas for me, I was very much like Jeremy was like, well, how would you feel if you die and I have your babies? And I just started crying. I was like, that's so sad. Like, it's so sad to think about. Like, if I died, Jeremy can then have my babies. But it was so interesting. It was like, okay, so if I die, is he then going, and this is like a really morbid topic, and we've like talked about it all day, but like, if I die, is Jeremy then going to go and be a single dad and find a surrogate and do it that way? Or is he going to find a new wife and have kids with her? Or have a new wife and be like, I love you, but I want kids with my ex-wife who died, Rosie? Or like, is he just never going to use them?
I mean, we don't even know right now if we want to use those embryos
ourselves
as being together. So now it's like thinking, will I want to use them if you pass? Like, I don't know.
Yeah, and it's tough because I was thinking, like, I don't want Jeremy to have my kids with another woman, but then it's also like, okay, so say if I did die and Jeremy grieves for 2 years and then he's like, oh my god, I miss Rosie, I want to raise her child, that's what she wanted, I'm going to raise her child and like have chubby cheeks a little bit and like feel connected to her, who am I then to say, no, you can't do that without me? Like, Jeremy would be a great dad, like, with me or not, but it's just such a hard topic. And then, like, whenever I thought about it, I was just crying so much, wasn't it? And it got to the point where I was laughing. I was like, why am I still crying? Like, I'm just crying, I just couldn't think about it. I was not in control. I was just crying. I was laughing at the fact that I was crying so much because it was just so sad. It's just so sad to think about that, like, I could die and you could have my children without me. Or, like, you could have my children with another woman. Or, I don't know, I just found the whole thing so sad even to think about. And I just kept crying. I was just on one, I was crying. Anyway, so that is something that you have to think about, because I've avoided thinking about it because I knew it was going to be a hard pill to swallow, a hard thing to think about, and I thought about it today and non-stop cried. So that's been fun. So then we had the meeting with the nurse, and then she sort of said, by the way, you kind of need to decide, and if you decide to say no, that's fine, you can carry on with the treatment in November and nothing changes. It just means that in the future you can't then go ahead and say yes. So you have to say yes before you do the embryos. So if you say no now, it's no forever. But if you say yes now, you can say no later on down the line. So I can change my mind later on. But it was just like a whole thing. And so she was saying, like, if it's a yes, if it's a no, you can do treatment in November. If it's a yes, it might take an extra month because you need to sign more documents, you need to do more blood tests, you need to pay more money, you need to do counselling as well.
Well, you're becoming a donor, so basically there's more things involved in it.
Yeah, so basically I would be now a donor of my eggs and my embryos to Jeremy that he can use in a surrogate or his new wife or whoever he wants, basically, which is mad to think about. So I'm glad we had that discussion, because even though we have decided yes, by the way, it was a tough one because I was thinking, like, I want to say yes, but it means more time, more money, more tests, more paperwork, all the rest of it. But if I say no, that means it's no forever, and I can't ever go back and say, actually, yeah, I think I would like if I get cancer and like, oh, I'm dying, Jeremy, my last wish is that Jeremy has my babies, and oh no, I've already said no, so I can't even do that. Like that, like, you kind of got to think of like all circumstances, and it's so sad and depressing to like put yourself in that situation. Like, okay, if I'm dying of cancer, do I want Jeremy then to have the rights over the embryos and do that whole thing on his own? It's just like a whole, like this has been a whole conversation today, so it's been so tough and something that I didn't think was going to be this serious to me, but it really did affect me on like a whole other level. So that's just me being really honest with you, because I hadn't really thought about it. So from there, we decided yes. So since then, today, we have signed more paperwork. We haven't paid the extra thing, but we've organised for counselling to happen on Thursday. We've arranged, we were going to do blood tests anyway next week for the cycle, but we've arranged to have more blood tests. We've also arranged for my medication to be dropped off at my brother's house tomorrow, so he's going to receive that and he has to put one bag in the fridge straight away. So that's all going to be there and ready, which is good. So also when we have our nurse's appointment, which we've organised for Halloween the 31st of October, I'll have the medication at home, I can have a look at it, and then she can talk to us about how I inject myself. I've also got the app so I can ask some questions and like do that whole thing. I also had to, she asked me about my smear test, so I did a smear test in February. I sent them a screenshot on my NHS app, but that's not good enough, so I need to contact my doctors and get them to have like some sort of written note saying Rosie did a smear test, everything was negative and normal. So that's something I need to go ahead and do this week. But yes, we've got the counselling on Thursday, which I think they basically just want to make sure that you understand the consequences of what you're agreeing to, being like, okay, if you sign up for this, this is actually what could it could happen. I know you kind of think you don't want it to happen, and obviously I don't want you to die, I don't want me to die, but it is something that could happen potentially in the future. So I think with the counselling is just kind of make sure that you understand what you're actually signing up for. And then, so because of this, I had to fill out a form today, or 2 forms, but one of them in particular was kind of like, because I'm now officially a donor of my eggs and my embryos, which by the way is different and Jeremy's not, which is a whole other thing. Because I think, because if Jeremy dies and I use the embryos, they're probably going to get put into me again, so I don't need a surrogate or somebody else. Basically, I can just put the embryos back into my body, so technically it's not a donor. Whereas if I die, obviously Jeremy can't implant them into himself, so he would need a surrogate or another woman, so therefore I'm donating my eggs. But also, if he dies, technically he's donating his sperm. So it's weird how it's different. Apparently it changed this year in July time.
I don't think they thought it through.
No. And there's other things. So Jeremy was saying, like, if Jeremy dies, and then if something happens to my ovaries, say for example we get in a car crash, Jeremy dies, my ovaries get fucked and I can't then carry a child, I can donate my embryo because I'm now a donor because I've agreed to all this. But Jeremy didn't, because... And
I wasn't screened, or I wasn't
registered
as a donor.
Yeah, I'm getting extra tests because I want to be a donor, and then extra consent forms, all the rest of it, but Jeremy isn't. So it's interesting how like it's different for both of us. Like the process is different, and I don't know.
Yeah. Well, and even what you want to talk about the litter. Yeah.
So this bit as well. So part of the form, you kind of have to see it as if it's for a complete stranger. As if I'm going to donate my eggs, and some lesbian couple or another couple who can't get married, or a gay couple, whatever, like somebody else is going to use those eggs. Somebody I don't know. So the form is written as if that's the case. So it's kind of like name, date of birth, address, all the rest of it.
Hobby.
But it says like eye colour, hair colour, hobbies, occupation, and then there's a section, it says something like, do you want to write a letter to the donor conceived person? And then so it's like, okay, so am I now writing a letter to my future children, presuming that I'm either dead or mentally incapacitated? I can't say that word. So do I write a letter being like, to my future children, I loved your daddy so much, and apparently I'm either dead or mentally not there, so enjoy life with your dad, I love you so much, sorry I never got to meet you. Like, do you write that? Like,
and I don't get to write that.
And Jeremy doesn't get to write that. And then the other thing was you can write a letter about yourself so that this donor child can then grow up when they're 18, get information to who their biological parent was, and being like, hi, my name is Rosie, I'm a yoga teacher, I'm a photographer, I'm super creative, I love to travel, I do this, I do that, here's my favourite memory, here's when I got married. Like, like, I understand that if you're donating it to somebody who you don't know and they want to be like, oh, who's my mum? Oh, cool, she was a traveller. I love to travel too. Or, oh, she was a photographer. That makes sense why I'm creative, because I got it from my mum. So, like, I get it from that sense. But if it's in this sense where it's like I'm either dead or mentally
incapacitated,
it's kind of sad to then have to write a letter being like, dear future children, I'm your mum and you're here because I died or I'm not well, but here's a little bit about me. I'm this, that, the other. So it's a weird whole concept, and Jeremy doesn't have to do that as well, which is like, it's weird how it's different for us, and it's just been a whole day of like crying and emotions and talking and like figuring out what we're going to do. And I kind of wanted to say yes, but then I was like, it's like she said it might take an extra month, and I was like, it's an extra month, it's like an extra month of not travelling, it's more money, it's going to cost an extra £700, I think she said, it's more tests, it's more paperwork. I was like, it's a pain in the tits. And I also feel weird that Jeremy could now have my children without me. That just makes me so sad, and it's so confusing and so weird in itself, because like the whole point of us doing it is to do it together. Like, we started this thing to hopefully have children, if we want to, one day in the future together, and now it might be. And the other thing was, like, it doesn't say in the form, if Jeremy murders Rosie, he can't then use her eggs. So he could now murder me and use have our babies with me being dead and me having nothing to do with it. So that's another thing that's not in the contract of like, oh, by the way, if one of them murders the other one, maybe don't give them access to the embryos. Yeah. Like, it's just the whole thing.
People are going to think crazy to think about it.
Well, I know it is crazy to think about it.
No, but it's funny just that, it's different, and you can see it's new. You can see they didn't think about everything. I feel like there's some gap in the process there. It
is weird that we're thinking about all this, but we've also been put in a position where we have to think about all this, because it's kind of like,
what if?
Yeah, what if? And it's like, okay, well, so, you know, if I die and then Jeremy finds another woman, but she's had cancer and therefore can't carry, or whatever, she's got something wrong with her ovaries, she can't carry children, so then maybe you want to use my embryos. So, like, I don't want to stop Jeremy from ever having kids, but then I also don't want him having kids with another woman. But then it's like, you just think about all these different things and all these different scenarios, and we decided to go with yes, because at least with a yes, you can change your mind. We're giving each other options, but also ourselves, in that, like, if I do ever get cancer and it's like a slow death, whatever, I can be like, actually, I want to change my mind, I don't want you having my children when I'm not here. Or it can still be a yes, whereas if we'd said no, the process is quicker and cheaper and easier, but it means I can never go ahead and change it to a yes. So that was a whole thing that we were not expecting today at all. Like, she said, we're sending over some paperwork, and we thought, right, okay, just be like, name, address, date of birth, done, I consent, send it off. No, it was a whole thing, cry my eyes out, and it's been a lot to deal with. But so I was expecting to talk to you again when we start treatment, and here we are again talking to you now. But I'll be back on Thursday to talk to you about the counselling that we have, about the fact that we did say yes, that we're going to be donors, and see what that's about. I don't really know what to expect from that, but that was today. Have you got anything else to add? Blimey, this whole thing is I think today's decision was one of the hardest parts for me. I think it was harder than deciding to do IVF. It was harder than deciding to do the testing. For me, I just found it really, really hard. Like, I wish I'd kind of videoed me today, because it was ridiculous how much I cried, wasn't it? Yeah. But it's all part of the process. We'll be back on Thursday. I'll probably add it onto this video so it's all in one chunk. But thank you for watching, and we'll be back in 2 minutes. Hi guys, so it is Thursday the 20th of October. We've just had our counselling session. Before we talk about that, I want to touch upon the fact that we received our medication on Tuesday at my brother's house. So we got a box and a blue bag, and the blue bag went straight in the fridge, and the box is just wherever it is. And that's going to be our medication. So we've got a meeting on the 31st of October to learn how to use all that. But I just wanted to let you know that has arrived, which is really good. And then the other thing that happened is that our apps got updated with like a preliminary date timeline thing, basically saying I'll get my period on this day, we'll start injections on this day, and then the estimated date for extraction was like the 20th of November.
20 or 21st,
20 or 21st, So 21st November is our preliminary date for the egg extraction. Now, obviously this might change depending on when I start my period, depending on how the medication takes, but that has been going. So today we've just had our counselling about being donors, basically. So because, like we said, we're doing embryo freezing, we're doing testing, and we also had to decide that if Jeremy dies, do I get access to the embryos? If I die, does he get access to the embryos? And we both decided yes. I talked about this earlier on in the video, how it was really emotional for me, I kept crying. But after, like, following that, we're technically now donors because we're going to be donating our... Like, if I die, Jeremy would have to put the embryo in a surrogate, which means I'm donating to the surrogate, which then would be Jeremy's baby, if that makes any sense. So I just had a counselling session to kind of talk about that, and I thought it would be a lot more about the implications of being a donor. But actually it was a lot about our experience in terms of the miscarriages, in terms of the abortion, in terms of how we're looking after ourselves, in terms of our communication with each other, emotions. It was good, wasn't it? She was nice.
Yeah, so she was great.
Yeah.
Rough cake stuff, but
She was brilliant. She was like
she was good, yeah.
Yeah, she was saying... What was she saying about the cake thing?
Just putting things like using images to
saying that, like, we're the
explain
cake.
concepts, right?
And then, yeah, well, it was nice anyway. So,
yeah.
And it was nice as well. She said something about, like, every day, she lives near a beach in Wales. Every day at 4 o'clock, there's a couple that gets on the beach and has a cocktail. She was saying, like, I don't know what they've been through in life, but if they're getting, having a cocktail every day at 4 o'clock.
I do like that.
I was like, that is brilliant. So she was saying, when you're 80, if you're, like, drinking cocktails on the beach, whether you've celebrated having lots of children or no children or travels or whatever it is, and she was really good at supporting us and, like, our decisions, but also encouraging the fact that it's okay not to be okay, and it's okay to be stressed and cry. And
yeah, and also, like, not to be on the same page.
Yeah.
Like, to be at different level of whatever it is, and
yeah, she was saying it's
like to, like, support each other, but also not too much, like, because you might be thinking different things, and like, be here for each other, but don't try to, like, do also too much, like, if you need to cry, you can cry. And,
yeah.
Like, I thought that was, like, interesting.
She was kind of saying it's like you're on a roller coaster, so you might be on either different parts of the roller coaster, or maybe you're even in the same seat and you're going at the same speed, but you're both experiencing the roller coaster entirely differently. Like, you're getting different views and different triggers and different good things and bad things, which I think is so true, because like, I mean, we talked about as well, our whole experience with all of this has been so different in terms of the miscarriages and the abortion. Like, we mentioned to her after the abortion, everybody was asking about how I was, and that, like, I got counselling, and, like, family members, oh my god, how's Rosie? And there wasn't a lot of support for Jeremy in terms of, like, how are you holding up? Because Jeremy had to go back to work, he had to look after me, who was depressed in bed and suicidal and all the rest of it, and, like, there's just not that same sort of support for men as there is for women. So she suggested some support groups for, like, men's infertility. She also mentioned some, like, resources for us in terms of, like, how to ground yourself, or if you do ever get pregnant, like, here's a helpline where you can call up and be like, oh my god, this is too much. Or so I think she was really good, and she said that we can book in several sessions if we want to, so maybe one when we've started treatment, maybe one after we've done treatment and we're waiting to hear back from the numbers, and then maybe one once we've got the numbers as well, so we can kind of feel supported throughout the whole process, which is good, because I've thought for a while I could do with counselling, and then I tried it this year. I tried BetterHelp, which I didn't love, but she seems good, so I might...
Yeah.
We'll see how I get on, but I think we could probably do with seeing her more often afterwards, even if it is paid. But I think finding someone that you trust and someone that understands you and that listens to you. And I think one of the main things for me would be having someone that understands fertility.
Yeah, you could see she knew what she was talking about.
Yeah, she's talked to a
like,
lot of people who've gone through fertility issues and different types of fertility issues. So
like,
I think
you could feel like if you decide that, that's fine, but it's also you decide that, that's fine. Like, she was very, like, not judgmental, and also, like, putting both, having kids or not having kids on the same equal level.
Yeah.
And I like the way she was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She mentioned something called More to Life, and I don't know if it's a charity or if it's just a group of people, but she said you all get together and there's no talk of, like, so when are you having children, or how many kids have you got, or do you want children, or when are you having children? It's all about, like, more to life. So, like, okay, where have you visited, or where have you travelled to, and how's work, and what do you do in your spare time, what are your hobbies, and, like, talk about other things than kids, because there is more to life than kids. And I think just knowing that, I didn't understand if everybody has been through infertility loss, so they don't talk about it.
I think it's for childless families, couple. But yeah.
By choice or not by choice, though?
I think anything. Just
we'd have to do some research, but yeah, so that could be interesting, because I think a lot of the time it's interesting, because when a lot of your friends have kids as well, you sort of think, oh, that's the thing you should do. But then we're kind of the anomaly in that, like, we're 34, well, Jeremy's nearly 35, I'm nearly 35 as well. And, like, we don't have kids and we're very happy travelling and living our life as we are, but we're not doing things in a normal way. So I think it could be nice to meet other couples that are also childless, either by choice or not, but either way, like having fun and enjoying their lives and it not being like the end of the world.
Not being the weird ones.
And us not being the weird ones that are like, you're 35 and you've not got kids. So
and you don't have a job and you don't have a house. What the hell are you doing?
Yeah, we're not the normal, are we? So we might have a look at that one. That was kind of interesting, but I thought it was good anyway. I was nervous beforehand because I thought it was going to be a lot of like, do you know that if you do this, this means that Jeremy can do this, that and either with your embryos and this is going to happen, that's going to happen. And we talked about that actually, about our fears of like, oh my God, like I don't want Jeremy raising my kids with some other woman and whatever else. And I don't know, I think it's just like sad to think about Jeremy having our kids without me being there and being able to experience and know who they are and all the rest of it. But actually she was saying that was interesting. Say if we did have a kid and then one of us dies, we could then, either Jeremy could have a surrogate or I could implant or have a surrogate to have a second kid so that our first child could have a sibling, which is something we hadn't thought about. I would see you doing that. You'd see me doing that?
Well, yeah, considering if you want some, you want 25.
I don't want 25 on my own. I would do 2, so. Yeah. But that's something that we hadn't thought about. So the fact that, like, if
there's more to it than just what we thought.
Yeah, like if I have a baby, then I die, Jeremy can be like, oh, okay, I want my kid to have a second kid, so I'll use one of the embryos and use a surrogate and do that way. So it was. She
also brought the point of like, you know, sometimes some people just don't want to commit to another relationship.
Yeah.
Like she made this point a few times, like.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting. It was good anyway. So
you might want a child, but you don't want another relationship.
Yeah. So that was the counselling session. I thought she was brilliant. I think I'd like to speak to her again.
Yeah, there's definitely someone, I think, if we ever need it or whatever, I would ask for a contact again. Yeah.
And I think especially if we ever went ahead and, like, if we go travelling for a year or two and then think, okay, we're going to do it, we're going to have kids, I think we'd need, both of us would need counselling as well in terms of that. I think you especially with the pregnancy side of things, but then also me in terms of, like, feeling pregnant and feeling a baby kicking, like, even the thought of that makes me cry. It's just going to be so triggering from the abortion, but also from the miscarriages in terms of, like, feeling pregnant or, like, the kicking or giving birth especially is going to be triggering. Like, all of it's going to be so hard. So, like, I think it would be good to have somebody that understands fertility and someone that we feel comfortable with and someone that understands where we're coming from and knows our history as well. So I think she was...
Oh, yeah, I like that.
Yeah, she was good. Okay, so that's the end of this video. The next video is probably going to be opening the medications up when we get back home. And I'm going to pair that with talking to the nurse and her showing us how to do the injections. So I'm going to put those two together so it's kind of like an injections video. And then I guess after that, it might be scans or starting injections, I'm not sure. But that's it for this video anyway. The other thing I wanted to talk about was, during our conversation on Monday, something really funny happened. So we were talking about what's going to happen in terms of me going in for the egg retrieval and all this sort of stuff. And then we started talking about Jeremy's job in terms of ejaculating in the cup. But it was so funny because she was like, right, we don't want the sperm to be too old, we don't want it to be too young. So you've got to ejaculate about 2 to 4 days beforehand. So what we can do is we can send you a message and say, hey, if you want to ejaculate today, and then that'll be a good amount of timing. And I was just like, can we just take a minute? This is so weird. I've got some woman on the computer telling my husband when he can ejaculate. I was like, is this not weird for anybody else? And she was like, oh, this is normal for me. And I was like, this is not normal for me. I don't know how women often tell my husband, oh, you can ejaculate on this day, but make sure you don't ejaculate then and don't have sex. And like, it was so funny, wasn't it?
Yeah, I mean...
It was good I had no idea. It was good to know because she was saying about you don't want your sperm to be too old. So I guess if you don't ejaculate like for 2 weeks before that, maybe your sperm's a bit slow. I don't know. And then obviously you can't ejaculate like 2 hours before and then not have enough there to donate or... Yeah, I don't know. It was interesting. That was funny though. I've been dying to talk about that. I was like, I need to remember to talk about the sperm talk because that was something that was funny.
I actually thought about it before.
Did you?
Yeah. So it's good she brought it up.
I didn't. I thought you just go there and jerk off. I didn't think you'd have to like plan. Okay, well if I do it on a Wednesday, then I'll be alright by Friday.
I thought about it. I wanted to Google it because I wasn't listening in biology class, so
no.
Like I don't know how it works down there. I don't know
how often it rejuvenates. And
stuff. If you don't have sex for 1 year, does it just stay there for 1 year, and you don't produce more, or does it die and you all? I have no idea how the hell it works down there. So.
I think we'll be watching some YouTube videos today, doing some Googling.
So, yeah, no, she brought it up.
Yeah. Anyway, that's the end of this video. Thank you so much for watching. Stay tuned for the rest of our journey. Hopefully I'll not be ill in the next videos. Give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. Comment down below anything you want to say. If you want to say hello to us, that'd be really nice, and encourage us and send us some love and support. Otherwise, we'll see you very soon. Bye.